Welcome to Dark Whispers. In the late 1920s, nestled in the heart of a fog-choked valley, there was a town called Willow Shade. This town was an eternal twilight, covered with a chilling mist, where the air was always thick with uncertainty, and the silence was unnerving. People rarely spoke of it, and those who did seemed to whisper in hushed tones, their eyes darting nervously from side to side. The town itself seemed to sigh under a weight no one could lift. At the very end of a secluded, narrow street stood a crooked building, half hidden in darkness. It was an old shop, the windows clouded with dust, and the sign hanging crookedly above the door read, Carrie's Curiosities. The very name carried a sense of unease, and anyone who passed by couldn't help but feel an unexplainable chill run down their spine. Behind the counter of this store was the owner, Carrie. Carrie was a mysterious figure with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce into the soul of anyone who met her gaze. Her shop was filled with relics from ages past, ancient clocks, tarnished mirrors, and strange, dusty trinkets that seemed to hum with some unsettling energy. It was said she had an unusual talent tone that drew people in from far and wide. Carrie could tell you your future with spine-chilling accuracy. Her predictions were never vague. No tarot cards, no crystal balls, only blunt, unyielding certainty about your fate, and her predictions always came true. No one knew how, but she saw the future through the deepest recesses of her soul. And sometimes, she saw death. Some locals believed that if you dared to touch anything in her shop, you invited disaster into your life. Others were more fatalistic, saying she only revealed what fate had already decreed. No one truly knew, no one truly dared to find out. But still, there were those who couldn't resist. The journalist's challenge. One of those people was a young, ambitious journalist named Will Power. Known for his sharp wit and relentless investigations, Will was fascinated by the growing rumors surrounding Carrie, another scam artist. He thought, his mind set on exposing her as nothing more than a charlatan who played on people's fears. I'll show them what real journalism looks like, he muttered to himself as he made his way to Willow Shade, a small town brimming with secrets, just waiting for someone to unravel them. He entered Carrie's Curiosities with all the confidence in the world, determined to prove the entire town wrong. The old bell over the door rang faintly as it closed behind him, and the air inside seemed to grow heavier with each step. Carrie was standing at the counter, her back straight, eyes hollow, as though she had been expecting him. Her unsettling gaze fell on him and didn't waver. Will noticed an unnatural stillness around her. "Well, Carrie," Will began, his voice dripping with skepticism. "Let's see if your so-called gift is real. You're going to tell me my future, right?" He grinned, mocking her in a way he didn't think was possible. His hands reached out and picked up a strange, old clock that seemed to be made of solid brass and had intricate engravings of ancient symbols. Carrie's lips curled into a cold smile. Slowly, she stepped closer to him. "It's a simple thing, really," she whispered, her voice like the sound of a distant thunderstorm. "But tonight, at midnight, your time will run out." The cold, emotionless look on her face didn't leave. Will scoffed, stepping back, a smirk still on his lips. "Sure, lady, I'll be sure to write that down. Will Power is destined for doom, but I'm sure I'll be just fine," he muttered as he moved towards the door. He never turned to look back, not yet. The first signs of fear. As Will made his way back to his room that night, he couldn't help but think about what Carrie had said. The words danced in his head, each syllable dripping with menace. "Time will run out." He tried to shake it off, blaming the ominous words on his own curiosity, his own need for sensationalism. The room grew cold as the sun sank, and the heavy, all-consuming darkness of night set in. At 11:50 p.m., his office felt unbearably cold. Every sound seemed to echo too loud. Every tick of the clock on the wall sounded like a hammering heartbeat. Will stood frozen for a moment, his eyes watching the old clock on his desk, the one he had brought from Carrie's shop. The second hand moved too slowly, almost deliberately, with a constant tick that grated against his nerves. At 11:59, the air seemed to press down on him. Something in the shadows of the room shifted. It was as if the very walls were alive. Will wiped his forehead, nervously tugging at his collar. And then, midnight struck. Dong, dong, dong. It wasn't just any strike of the clock. It was a thundering sound, like death itself ringing in his ears. The room seemed to shake with each chime. Suddenly, without warning, a gust of icy cold wind swept through the room, knocking papers to the floor and making the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. Will spun around in a panic. And there she was, Carrie's wrath. "It's time, Will," our voice echoed, unnatural and cold, as if the sound itself was coming from a grave. Carrie appeared before him, but she seemed larger than life now. Her body surrounded by swirling shadows that appeared to move with their own life. The air was thick with an undeniable sense of danger. "You can't escape your fate," she whispered, each word striking Will like a physical blow. "You can't escape your fate." Panic surged inside him as she advanced, and Will spun around desperately to escape. He grabbed the doorknob. It didn't turn. He pulled harder. No lock. He was trapped. Carrie's hands were cold. No, colder than any ice. They gripped his shoulders, pulling him back into the shadows. "No," Will screamed. "No, no, let me go." Her shadowed form whispered louder and louder, growing more relentless with every passing second. The fear he had once brushed off now consumed him completely. He couldn't breathe. But just as all hope seemed lost, the room fell silent. The chimes stopped. Will collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. A vanishing mystery. The next morning, Will was in a daze as he made his way to Carrie's Curiosities, determined to prove her nothing more than a con artist. But the shop was gone. There was no trace of it, just an empty lot overgrown with fake, twisted weeds. Had it ever existed? Will couldn't believe it, but the evidence was inescapable. He turned to leave but then stopped dead in his tracks. His hand reached instinctively for the clock on his desk eyes, the same clock from Carrie's shop. It was ticking, but much too loudly, as if it was counting down. With each tick, his heart raced. Tick, tick, every sound screamed in his ears. His breath grew shallow. And then, "You should have listened, Will," he gasped, clutching his chest. The air around him thickened. Every breath was a struggle. His vision blurred, and the room spun around him. The clock continued, louder, tick, tick, until there was nothing else. The curse lights on. The following morning, Will was found dead in his office, lifeless and cold, slumped over his desk. The clock was stopped at 12. Locals still whisper, on the darkest of nights, on nights thick with fog. Some say they still see Carrie's Curiosities appear out of the mist. They say the sound of ticking clocks can still be heard in the quiet hours of the night, and the curse still lingers. And they always ask the same question: would you dare to enter? Call to action. Want more spine-tingling tales? Subscribe to Dark Whispers now. Would you have touched something in Carrie's shop? Comment below.